What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm joined today with Charles Hamilton. How are you doing today, Charles?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm fantastic because after all, I've got my very favorite audience member here, my very favorite investor syndicator here, my very favorite audience member is here because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators. That means investors, buyers, sellers, all that kind of stuff. And why do I do that sort of silly thing? Well, if you want access to private off-market, also known as 506B deals, then you have to have a documented prior substantive relationship. And the reason for that is because the SEC will end up auditing you once you get to a certain number of assets under management. But before we get too excited about that, the main thing is I want to make sure that you understand how my guest, Charles Hamilton, fits into these deals, core competencies, appetite for risk, and all that kind of stuff. But before we get too excited, Charles, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself before we get into your business?
From Beaufort, South Carolina. It's about 45 minutes from Milton Island, South Carolina, and about an hour and 15 from Charleston, South Carolina. Getting into looking at commercial real estate, looking at specifically Charleston, South Carolina, and Jacksonville, Florida to start.
Excellent, excellent. So the first thing that we go through in these episodes, it's the 5 distinct motivations. Before that, I got to say, but wait, check here. If you're on YouTube, Charles, I don't know if you can see through the camera and into the audience's device, but down there might be a really gross looking subscribe button, and maybe they should, like get rid of it because it's ugly. No, it's a stupid joke. Anyway, let's move on. The 5 distinct motivations. I've met all sorts of different real estate players, and everybody has their own unique why. But at the same time, I found all of the different answers kind of fit fairly cleanly into these 5 different categories. And I'd like to go through them because there are a lot of risks involved in commercial real estate, other types of real estate, and we need to make sure that my guest is going to follow through on the deals. So what better way than to find out why they're doing it? The first reason why some people do commercial real estate deals is because they're preserving their purchasing power. What does that mean? Well, some people have a portfolio of assets, and the way that they make ends meet is from the proceeds of ownership. And so the only reason they're going to make another acquisition is either if inflation is eating away at the purchasing power of the cash flow from that ownership, or if they're buying at a steep discount, like when there's an asset crash or something like that, different distress. And that's not really what I'm up to. What I'm up to personally is I'm trading time directly for wealth. And that's because I got a background in technology, specifically it's CRMs. So that's mass marketing, talking to a whole whack of people. And then as I started doing that for real estate firms, I noticed my boss was flipping 10 houses a month. And I'm like, why am I paying more in tax than anybody else around here? So I figured, how can I pivot to where I'm getting rewarded in the form of deployed capital, AKA equity? So that's what I'm up to. But a lot of people get involved in commercial real estate because they're trying to fast track their retirement. And what's that all about? Really, it means that they want to take control of their schedule because maybe they just want to work fewer months per year or fewer weeks per month, something like that. But they really want to scale back and own their time and live on their own terms. Especially the youngsters are big on that one. But there are many people out there that doesn't apply at all. They're never looking to scale back. They're really ambitious. They want to buy their entire hometown. They want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's why they're making their acquisitions. And they're fantastic people to be around and have on your GP team because they're going to hustle into their 90s. But the last group they're similarly motivated, but it's not so much straight ambition. Maybe they've found a sector of society, or maybe it's the environment or animals, and they want to make a really big impact. But they realize that the financial side has to be really substantial if you're going to make a really big impact, and that's why they're making these deals. So, Charles, as far as you're concerned, of those 5 different motivations, like which one stood out to you? What combination of them describe you best?
Best to describe it is I'm looking to improve my knowledge on commercial real estate and finances as a whole, and transfer that to my family to build generational wealth.
I love that answer. It's so important because you just don't have to live a way that has no advantages. But there are still risks involved. And if you've ever been involved in a 506B deal, then I'm sure the securities attorneys who were involved, they had you fill out this questionnaire. And the questions are really, really invasive about your finances. It's like really big detail and is not very comfortable in general. But when I personally got to the question about tolerance for risk, I felt like it didn't really give me an answer that I'd be confident in relying on. So in this show, I've got the tolerance for risk assessment with a fill in the blanks question. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. Charles, it can be inside real estate, outside real estate. What's too risky for you?
I'm just a little bit, but I certainly think it's a little too risky as crypto. Just because it doesn't have any tie to any store of value. It's just based upon supply and demand.
I love it. I love it. And after all, you can't eat it. And this thing kills me every single time. It's a very subtle way to let everybody know that they should subscribe. But it's the segue to the Dan Does Deals Core Competency Cube, and you can get your own copy at dandoesdeals.com. And in every episode, I go through all 6 sides. The purpose is I want to make sure that you, yes, you in the audience, learn how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate. You know the basic deals or the basic roles in a deal, and you understand how my guest fits in. So I go through all these 6 sides in every episode. It just takes 2 minutes. And dandoesdeals.com, I don't even ask for your email address, which is crazy talk as far as marketing goes. You should always ask for contact information. But let's talk about deals. First of all, repositioners, they look at a bunch of different properties because they are acquisitions people. But the thing that makes them different on a team is they're doing the paperwork. What is this paperwork? Well, there's a fancy word for it. It's called underwriting. That means they're doing the math. They're figuring out, first of all, is this property actually even making the amount of money that the broker or seller claims it is? Because they might be playing games with the numbers. The repositioner has to be able to see through those because they're figuring out how can they make changes to how this property is run. That's what they're really looking for. Is they're looking to find out how can they find more upside. Now, one thing that is a little bit peculiar about repositioners in general, as far as if you're uninitiated, is they spend a lot of time doing investor relations, working with financiers. Financiers, of course, being lenders, people who deal with only paper and money. But the financiers, they are not on a GP team, okay? They might be fund managers, they might actually work for banks or whatever. But the reason why repositioners have to spend so much time with financiers is because if the repositioner can secure a more advantageous loan, then that goes straight to the profitability of the building. So that's why they're constantly looking for more financiers. But the more traditional place where they're going to cut costs are going to be in the operations. They're going to stop those Benjamins from going down the toilet. But of course, operations is more than just collecting rents and mowing lawns and unclogging toilets. Me personally, I do a lot of automation and online assets and also marketing. So that's how I fit into these different categories of operations. But the fact is, because commercial real estate is so competitive, operations probably won't be enough upside for the repositioner. So they're probably going to get a contractor team involved to do value add or upgrade the units, make them nicer. Because if the next resident is happy to pay more in rent than the previous one, then that's upside all baked in. And the best way to do that is upgrading the units. But of course, you can spend endless amount of money upgrading. That doesn't mean there's going to be a return on the investment. And one of the most dangerous ways to run into that situation is if you don't have A local. See, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm from the internet. So that means I need a local because if somebody has to get there in an hour or two, you can guarantee it will not be me because I'd still be stuck at an airport if I had to get there, in that sort of span. So you need the local boots on the ground to check up on the operations, make sure they're telling the truth, make sure the contractors are keeping the schedule and all that kind of fun stuff. But when the repositioner has decided on which property they're going to get, they're going to turn around to the financiers and say, hey, I got this great property I want to take over. It's 350 units and it's tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you? Well, the financier is going to have some extra questions in their head. A lot of coaching and guru programs, they really gloss over it. And that is, who is the sponsor or KP? What's that all about? Well, let's say that you're a retiree or a physician, an engineer, something like that, and you and a few of your friends want to pool resources to take over a commercial real estate property. The snag is going to be when you go to the bank and they're going to ask you, okay, so who in the fold already owns a 350 unit apartment complex so that we know you're not going to run it into the ground. So that is the sponsor or KP. And on top of having these different pieces of the puzzle all put together, the property and these different members of the team, you need a certain amount of liquidity. You also need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan among the ownership team. But if you got all those pieces, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Charles, you're doing a lot of financier, investor relations. It sounds like you're down the road. You might be starting a fund or something like that. And obviously, you're going to be doing some repositioning and asset management with the operations. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. Which sides of the die do you expect to be spending most of your time?
In the future, so I expect to be on the financier side. Right now, I'm doing a little bit of the repositioner, but I'm looking to move out of that in the long term.
All right. Excellent. So then the next question has to do with ideal property, and that has to do with the buy box. So when syndicators, commercial investors and whatnot are saying, hey, what you looking for? What's ideal for you? What's your buy box? We're really asking about three things. First one's geography. Charles is in South Carolina, which is where I suspect is really the stomping ground that he wants to take care of. But when we ask about geography, we're talking about which states, which counties, possibly even which neighborhood. Okay, the location is going to matter. So the geography is the first one. Second one is size. Most of my guests on Chance Encounters are in multifamily commercial real estate, and the way that you define size in multifamily is by unit count. And it's really important because you're going to have a completely different group of people taking over 15 unit apartment complexes compared to the ones that are taking over 150 unit apartment complexes. So that size is definitely going to matter. But the third one is class. And I got to admit, one of my pet peeves is when people use the same word for more than one thing that are completely different, and class is definitely one of them. I like to separate them into condition and area. So condition has to do with when was it built? Is it all beat up? Is it in reasonable shape? Is it nice? Is it someplace you'd actually want to live in? Which means like, what about the amenities and luxuries and whatnot? Okay, that's the condition. But the area, that has more to do with what's the crime rate like where the property is located. Excuse me. What's the crime rate? What are the school districts like? And then, of course, the desirability has to do also with how many people go past that property on a given day. And both of those two meanings of class are ranked the same way as in grade school, where you got A plus at the top, and then A minus, and then B plus, and so on. So, Charles, as far as your ideal properties, what are you looking at? What's perfect for you?
The buy box is in the southern United States and also really I said southern United States plus Texas. But it's usually 50 to 150 units, garden style apartment complexes, C and B class neighborhoods. I mean C and B class properties, excuse me, and also with a value add component to it.
I love it. I love it. So you got that, you got that, got that. Good. We're awesome. So the next one has to do with who you are best suited to speak to. We already mentioned some financier relations, and I got to tell you, one of my favorite things about commercial real estate is that because it's multifaceted, it means nobody is going to be all six sides of the die for any meaningful amount of time. But at the same time, because we're all so multifaceted, we're so eager to help, give referrals, put you in touch with other people to complete these teams. But that said, we still have our own unique skill sets, and that means that we're going to be better suited to help some people more than others. Me personally, because of the digital side, it's the sponsors and KPs, and then also the locals that I'm best suited to help, especially because I'm from the internet. But Charles, how about you? If you have any 506B deals where you've got to sign PSA, you don't want to be mentioning the specific deal, but it's still okay to say it's like beginners or people looking to get into this, but just don't go enticing investors. So if you have a donut on your desk, don't wave it in front of the camera. We don't want anybody getting enticed. So who are you looking for, Charles?
I'm looking for people who are in small businesses, looking for people who are in small businesses looking to reallocate their money to other places to get a return and also get tax benefit from it.
I love it. I love it. And then as far as how to reach out, then, me, I'm really easy to get a hold of, especially on LinkedIn. I spend a ton of time on there, and I'm easy to find because of the distinct last name. But this QR code, that if you scan that with your phone, that goes to the FAQs page of 506 BME, which is a platform to document your substantive relations with your investors. And that's important because once you get to a certain amount of assets under management, the SEC will audit you, and they're going to be checking to see if you were offering your deals publicly when you weren't supposed to, and basically pitching all willy-nilly. You can't have that. You got to have that substantive relationship. But Charles, we ended up meeting through some Zoom meetings that are networking events for commercial syndicators. What are the best ways to reach out to you?
Probably the best way is to contact me through my website, which is www.hamiltoninvestmentswithans.grp.com. And on there you can either call me or you can send me an email directly.
All right, beautiful. And then on social media, are there any platforms you're on there more often than others?
Oh, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn mostly, but I'm also on Facebook and also Instagram.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's a few Charles Hamiltons out there, but the next thing I have, it's the last part. It's actually not for you, Charles. It's for the audience. It's a public service announcement. If you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs and like migraine-like symptoms, it's probably that hideous subscribe button, and if you just click on it, it's totally free and it goes away. And sure, I'm biased. I want people to click on it because then YouTube will start paying for these videos instead of me. But honestly, all it means is that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions. You can go ahead and ignore those suggestions because I just really appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Charles, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been great.
No problem. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thanks. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay, are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.